When my daughter-in-law stood outside my house with deputies, shouting that everything inside belongs to her, I didn't raise my voice. I watched, calm as ever, holding a folder that could end her lies with one signature. That day, peace began on paper. The real story was just starting. The smell of baked chicken and cornbread filled my kitchen, the kind of warmth that once meant family. I'd spent the afternoon polishing the silver, setting my best dishes, making sure the table looked like home should. Darius carried in the tea pitcher while Valora, his wife, stood near the window, taking pictures of the dining room. "Great lighting in here," she said, tilting her phone. I smiled softly, though I felt the sting. This was my home, not a backdrop. Lainey sat at the table, swinging her legs, humming her choir tune. "Fix yourself a plate," I told her gently. I laid Calvin's old watch on the tray by the sink. It still ticked, steady as ever, though he'd been gone 5 years. We sat down, and the room hummed with forks, glass, and quiet talk. Darius asked about church, trying to fill the silence that Valora's phone kept breaking. "You know," she said, "if we repainted this wall, we could make it camera-ready. Sponsors love warm tones." She said it like I wasn't there. I cut a piece of chicken, tasted the salt, nodded. "Supper's for eating, not staging," I answered softly. Her lips tightened. I looked at Lainey. "Sweetheart, say grace." The child's prayer steadied me more than any sermon could. After we ate, Valora wandered to the shelf, picked up my old assistant principal nameplate, and set her drink on it. "It's got a retro vibe," she said. I didn't move, didn't sigh. I just thought, folks in Birmingham know what it takes to earn a plaque. Darius cleared his throat, talked about his new contract, but Valora jumped in, telling him to keep it real online and not sound too old school, or He laughed weakly. I felt the space between us widen. Then she brought out a bottle. "Just a little whiskey for the vibe," she said, pouring too much into her glass. "Mom, you want some?" Darius asked. "No, I'm fine with tea." I'd never liked how whiskey changed her tone, turned her words sharp. By her third pour, she leaned back and smirked. "Top me off," she ordered, lifting the glass toward me. I shook my head. "We don't do that in my kitchen. Help yourself." Her eyes flicked with challenge. "Servants must obey," she said with a laugh that sliced through the room. Time stopped. Lainey's fork clattered. Darius looked down. My pulse slowed to something cold. I stood and began stacking plates, saying nothing. Then came the sound, glass cutting the air. The whiskey hit before the glass did. I felt the burn, then the sharp sting near my temple. I didn't cry out. I gripped the chair and counted 1, 2, 3. "Baby, you okay?" I asked Lainey first. She nodded, wide-eyed. "Darius," I said, calm as the rain. "Take your wife to the living room." In the bathroom mirror, a red line traced my face. The water ran pink for a while, but my hands didn't shake. I pulled a zip bag from the drawer, wrapped a shard of glass in a napkin, dropped it in. Evidence, not anger. I placed Calvin's watch beside the sink, pressed record on my phone, captured 10 seconds, my face, the wound, the time. I whispered, "In case anyone forgets." I took still photos, 2, front, side, close. Then I cleaned the counter, wiped the nameplate dry, set it upright again. Back in the kitchen, Valora mumbled. "It was an accident," Darius whispered. "Mom, please." I met his eyes. "We'll handle this properly, not loudly." I bagged the remaining shards, labeled them, and set them by the plate like a quiet message. A woman my age, I thought. They call her dramatic for setting boundaries. I straightened my shoulders. Assault is assault. Paper beats noise. Lainey looked at me, frightened. I smiled softly. We're still going to church tomorrow. When the house fell silent, I texted myself the photos. The timestamps glowed like little lights of truth. I looked at Calvin's watch once more and whispered, "They'll learn. Love." I reached for the phone, breathing slow, and dialed those 3 digits I'd taught 1,000 students never to fear. When the dispatcher answered, her voice was steady, practiced. 911. What's your emergency? My name's Marva Gillespie, I said, keeping my tone even. I'm 68 years old, at 3216 Maple Avenue, Birmingham. My daughter-in-law threw a glass at me. I'm bleeding, but it's controlled. The words came simple, no tremor. The dispatcher asked if I was safe. Yes, I said. The aggressor's in the living room, and my son's here, my granddaughter's asleep. She asked again if I wanted medical help. Yes, ma'am. And please log this call. Assault is assault, even in your own kitchen. I asked for the incident number, wrote it on the back of a grocery receipt. When she told me not to clean the scene, I nodded as if she could see me. I thanked her for being calm. 10 minutes later, blue lights painted my window. I stepped onto the porch with both hands visible. "Evening, officers," I said, steady. They looked young, polite but cautious. "We're responding to a domestic disturbance," one said. "Yes," I answered. "And you'll find the glass and the stain on the dining table." I led them through, showing the bagged shard, the whiskey-marked napkin, the nameplate now upright again. They took photos, and I offered my own, time-stamped, labeled, clear. "We'll file this as simple assault," one officer said. "Fine," I replied. "Just spell my name correctly." Valora, from the couch, called it an accident. I didn't turn toward her. "Please record her statement exactly as she said it." I took their names, cards, and wrote them in my small notebook. When the EMT cleaned my temple, I asked for the triage slip, evidence, not sympathy. When the door closed behind them, the house felt hollow. Darius sat at the table, elbows on knees. "Mom, I'm sorry. I should have—" he started. I lifted a hand. "Peace without truth is just quiet trouble," I said. "You froze. That's human. But freezing again? That's a choice." He looked down. "I'll file for a protective order first thing Monday." I continued. "Arthur will help me. The locks change tonight." He swallowed. "Valora didn't mean—" "Enough, son. Lainey needs to see her father protecting peace, not pretending it." I told him to put Lainey back to bed and keep Valora away from me. He nodded. Shame sitting heavy on him. I called Arthur Kinlaw, my attorney. The voicemail barely ended before he picked up. "Marva, you okay?" "I'm fine," I said. "Got photos, EMS note, police number." He told me to upload everything to a private folder, then back it up on a flash drive. "Don't confront her. Don't post. Paper speaks." His voice carried calm like a courtroom hymn. "We'll file for a protective order, Monday. Tonight, change the locks. Tomorrow, see urgent care. Keep every document." I agreed. "Thank you. Arthur, I'm not scared. I'm simply done." From the utility drawer, I took fresh batteries, a screwdriver, my reading glasses. At this age, you learn to keep tools close. I changed the front door code, then the garage keypad, screenshot the new entry logs. I opened the camera app, verified the cloud backup, then I labeled a folder, Incident S3, printed 2 notes, by court guidance, contact by counsel only. One went on the fridge, one inside the study. I poured chamomile tea and whispered to myself, "We'll handle this properly. Not loudly. Across the street, Ophelia Jarnigan stood under her porch light. She texted, "You okay?" "I am." I typed back, "Thank you." She offered to write a statement. I told her maybe, depending on what Arthur advised, no gossip, only truth. Inside. I laid out Lainey's choir dress and polished her little shoes. Routines save children from chaos. Tomorrow would be Sunday, and church would still be church. I sat at my desk, typed a statement. On September 7th, 2024, in my kitchen, my daughter-in-law threw a glass that struck my temple. Witnesses, Darius and Lainey Gillespie. I attached photos, EMS note, an incident number, asked for a temporary protective order covering my home. I printed it, signed it, and scanned it back into the folder. Then I locked the USB drive in my safe beside Calvin's watch. By midnight, the house was still. Valora snored softly on the couch. Darius dozed in the chair near Lainey's bed. I taped Arthur's card beside the front door and set the evidence tray beneath it. The watch ticked in the quiet, calm and sure. The world would see the truth soon enough, and the paper would speak for me. The morning light crept across my curtains, pale and slow. The house was still. I checked the camera feed on my tablet. The motion icon blinked once, then stopped. I took it as a reminder. Peace was always temporary in this home now. I set 2 bowls for breakfast and poured warm tea. Lainey's choir dress hung neatly on the back of her chair, the pink ribbon tied just right. I placed the silver tray near the door, the protective order notice, EMS slip, the glass shard sealed in plastic, and a small QR code taped beside them. I whispered my steadying phrase, "We'll handle this properly, not loudly." Darius sat half awake in the hallway chair, rubbing his eyes. "Keep things calm," I said softly. He nodded, quiet as a guilty child. The sound came quick, the rattle of a doorknob. Valora, standing by the door, froze when her eyes caught the printed notice. "What is this?" she snapped, grabbing the paper. Her thumb brushed the QR sticker. She scanned it without thinking. The folder opened on her phone, and my recorded bruise stared back at her. Her face went white. The scream that followed was high, jagged, and cut through the house like glass again. "It was an accident," she shouted. I stood still, arms folded. "It was recorded," I said evenly. "That will be enough." Darius rushed between us. "Valora, lower your voice!" Lainey peeked from the hall, startled. I gave her a calm smile and said, "Go finish your breakfast, baby." Valora pressed play on the clip. Her own voice echoed through the room. "Servants must obey." Then came the sharp crack of crystal on wood. She flinched, slammed her phone face down, and glared at me. "You're vindictive!" She spat. I gestured toward the tray. "Those are facts, not feelings." I turned to Darius. "Walk Lainey to the kitchen," Valora hissed. "You're taking her side." I met her eyes. "We're taking the side of the truth. Breakfast's getting cold." My phone buzzed with Arthur's message confirming receipt of the police report. I forwarded him the incident number and a still image. "Church is still church," I said to my son. "We show up for the child." After breakfast, I drove to the bank. The manager, a man I'd known since my days at the school, greeted me. "Mornin', Miss Gillespie. Everything all right?" "Just need to check some recent authorizations," I said. He printed the forms. We compared signatures side by side. The slant was wrong. The capital G had a flourish I never use. One document even had a skewed photocopy of my driver's license. "That's not my signature," I told him. He nodded slowly. "I'll open a fraud case. Issue certified copies. I asked for camera logs and vendor contact records. We'll note your right to counsel access," he said. I thanked him and photographed each page before sliding the stack into a folder labeled Essen Exigt Bank. Back home, I scanned the papers, uploaded them to my encrypted folder, and labeled a new subfile, Forged Signature. I typed an affidavit. That is not my signature. Attached 3 authentic examples from older documents and added the bank's letter. I placed everything behind the EMS slip on the tray by the door. Then I emailed Arthur with a clear subject line and concise summary. A sticky note went on the fridge. No deliveries accepted without my signature. I checked the doorbell camera again. Full battery. Good. Darius lingered near the table. "Maybe we should let this cool down," he murmured. I shook my head. Cooling is not covering. The truth doesn't melt just because it's uncomfortable. His shoulders dropped. I explained what the bank had shown me. He rubbed his temples. "I didn't know." "Now you do," I said. "Arthur files tomorrow. Today. We keep the child steady." Lainey appeared, clutching her choir binder. "Sing like you're singing to your granddaddy," I whispered. She smiled, brave for her age. Then the doorbell rang. The camera feed blinked, a delivery driver holding a large carton. I stepped forward. "Who's the order for?" "Valora Pruitt," he said, reading from his scanner. "Say that louder, please," I told him. He did. The audio caught it clear. "Not my order," I said. "Market refused. Signature mismatch." He nodded. "Got a body cam too, ma'am," he said, tapping his vest. I smiled slightly. "Good," I replied. "You keep that safe. I'll be needing a copy." Sunday sunlight poured through the blinds in quiet stripes across my living room. I opened the safe and took out the thick blue binder Calvin and I had signed 15 years ago, our living trust. The paper smelled faintly of ink and cedar, the kind of scent that reminds you of preparation, not fear. I flipped to the conduct clause, the one we added when our son first married. My finger followed each line. Any act of violence, fraud, or harassment within the household automatically voided residence privileges. I whispered to myself, "We don't fight in the hallway. We file in the daylight." The notary seal gleamed. I called Arthur Kinlaw, who picked up after the second ring. "Arthur, it's active," I said. He told me to email photos of the clause and to print a notice addressed to Valora Pruitt. "We'll deliver it certified," he said. I thanked him, printed 2 copies, and slipped one into a folder labeled Trust Clause Enforcement. With the phone on speaker, Arthur dictated the exact language. I wrote it slowly, each word deliberate. The document was brief. Incident date, conduct breach, reference to the clause, and a reminder that contact must go through counsel. I signed my name, steady and clear. Then I scanned it, saved it in a new folder marked S7 Trust Notice. I texted Darius, "Trust clause active. Keep Lainey's schedule steady." He responded only with a single word. Understood. I placed the notice beside the EMS slip and protective order. The tray was becoming a silent witness, layered, patient, and ready. I took out my old silver tray from the hutch, polished it until I could see my reflection in it, lined, but unbroken. I arranged the papers carefully. Photos of the bruise, the police incident card, EMS triage note, and the new trust clause. On the corner, I added a side-by-side print of my real signature next to the forged one from the bank. I set the tray on the dining table where sunlight could touch every edge. Valora walked in, lips tight. "You staging a play now?" she said. I looked her in the eye. "No, ma'am. This is the house record. Paper keeps its voice." Darius stood between us, his hands open. "Valora, please, just listen." Her glare could have cracked glass, but I didn't flinch. "We won't be shouting over this," I said. I opened the binder and read the clause aloud. Valora crossed her arms. It was an accident, and you know it. I nodded once. The police in the video disagree. Darius tried to speak, but I held a hand up. This clause is not revenge. It's safety. I slid Arthur's card toward them. From now on, any contact goes through counsel. I handed Darius a notepad. Write down Laney's choir pickup plan. Who, when, which door. Valora huffed, muttering about image and followers. I smiled thinly. Brands don't live here. People do. A small tug at my sleeve broke the tension. Laney stood holding a folded drawing. This is you and me at church, she said. My throat tightened as I knelt to her height. Thank you, sweetheart. The drawing showed us hand in hand, singing under bright windows. I framed it and placed it on the mantel beside Calvin's photograph. The two faces, past and future, anchored me again. I hummed a soft line from her hymn, and she joined me, her little voice finding courage in rhythm. Darius watched, his jaw loosening. Routines save little hearts, I said quietly. He nodded. I packed Laney's choir bag, sheet music, water bottle, a peppermint. I texted the director we'd arrive early, just us. I checked the smart lock settings, switched to owner only, and confirmed the chime. My purse held my keys, phone, and calm. We're choosing safety and truth for Laney, I told Darius. He repeated it back, as if learning the words by muscle memory. As we stepped toward the door, the bell chimed again. The camera showed someone holding a package. Phone up, already recording. Valora adjusted her hair in the reflection, thumb hovering over Go Live. I pressed record on my own app and opened the door 2 inches. My voice was steady. If you're filming, I said, we'll let the papers speak first. By late afternoon, the house felt like a courtroom waiting for its judge. I moved the coffee table aside and set 3 chairs in a row, Darius in the middle, Valora to his left, and Ophalie to the right. I kept my own chair level with theirs. No power seat, just even ground. The silver tray sat on the sideboard, gleaming under a slant of light. Incident card, EMS slip, trust clause notice, bank fraud letter, USB drive. Everything visible. Nothing dramatic. I texted Arthur the start time. No recording, I told everyone. Just notes, 1 person at a time. No yelling. If it gets loud, we pause. Laney was in the study coloring with the door cracked. I could hear the scratch of her crayons, a steady heartbeat in all this noise. We're not here to fight, I began. We're here to be plain. I started with facts. Saturday night, at approximately 9:30, I was struck on the left temple by a glass thrown across my dining table. I pointed to the EMS slip, the incident number. This is what the state documented, not me. I held up 1 photo, enough to show truth without spectacle. Then the trust clause. Any act of violence or fraud triggers loss of residence privilege. I followed it with the bank's fraud letter. That is not my signature. Jut. My voice didn't rise. From this day forward, contact runs through counsel. The air felt tight, like the moment before a hymn starts. Valora scoffed, leaning back. You make everything sound so official. It was an accident. Marva, you're twisting this to control the story. You're playing the elder hysteria card. I folded my hands. I won't argue with adjectives, Darius murmured. Please, Valora. But she pushed on, her words a swirl of optics and brand image. I said calmly, we're not performing, we're accounting. Ophalie shifted in her seat. Maybe we can stay on what happened, she said, soft but firm. I nodded toward her. Thank you. I slid Arthur's card across the table. Counsel can clarify anything unclear. My phone pinged. Arthur's message lit the screen. Filed civil notice accepted. Docket 2491. I read the first lines aloud, steady. Gillespie v. Pruitt. Protective and Trust Enforcement Filing. I handed the printed copy to Valora. You'll get official service this week. This is acknowledgement only. Darius stared at the trust clause, pale. So we have to move, he asked. It means, I said quietly, I will not live under threat. I gave him the plan. We'll coordinate any item pickup through Arthur's office. Every syllable felt like locking a door I once left open. Valora snatched her phone off the table. My followers deserve truth, she muttered, angling the camera toward me. Not in my house, I said evenly. She ignored me, whispering into the lens. I walked to the console, unplugged the Wi-Fi extender and smart speaker. I've lived long enough to know the difference between a crowd and a jury. Darius stepped in front of her phone. Stop, Valora. She didn't. Leave the phone or leave the room, I said. She slammed it down. Face up. Mike still live. Then it happened. The house itself spoke. The smart speaker, still drawing power from the wall, clicked on and played a stored voice memo. Valora's voice filled the air. Servants must obey. Followed by a laugh. Then, I signed a few things for her. She won't notice. Silence followed. Darius's face went gray. Ophalie looked at me, then at the speaker. I didn't gloat. I wrote the time in my notebook, pressed sync on the speaker, and heard the confirmation chime. The house asked for facts. I said, You brought them. Valora stammered. It's old. Taken out of context. Context is tonight, I replied. Darius whispered, Mom, I'm sorry. I nodded, not forgiving yet, just acknowledging he'd seen it. You'll take this phone outside now, I told Valora. Inside. We keep it decent. I thanked Ophalie for coming. She gathered her purse and slipped out quietly. I texted Arthur, memo log captured, time noted. I picked up Lainey's framed drawing from the mantel and set it in the center of the shelf. What stays in this house is what's worth keeping. The doorbell chimed again. The camera feed showed a delivery driver with the same vendor's logo and a flashing red body cam. I opened the door a few inches. Sir, can you confirm the name on that order? He checked his screen. Valora Pruitt. He tapped his camera. I met his eyes. Then we'll let both cameras tell it. The courthouse smelled faintly of polish and nerves. Arthur and I arrived early, our shoes echoing against the tiles. He carried the binder. I carried the silver folder, our record of what happened and how we'd kept it proper. We found a bench under the buzz of the fluorescent lights. I could feel Calvin's old watch pulsing gently against my wrist, steady as prayer. Arthur leaned close. Remember, Marva, slow answers, no stories. You're not performing, you're confirming. I smiled. Truth doesn't need a stage, just a chair. Darius sat a few rows behind, quiet, hands clasped. I reached back, gave his fingers a quick squeeze, then let go. He needed to stand tall on his own today. Valora walked in wearing a bright blazer and sunglasses, a phone tucked deep in her purse. Courthouse rules kept her silent for once. When our case was called, the judge's voice cut through the hum. Gillespie versus Pruitt, temporary protective order hearing. Arthur rose, crisp and polite. Your Honor, we seek relief for the petitioner's safety. No contact, no harassment, and supervised property retrieval. Valora's attorney objected to irrelevant social media material. Arthur's reply was gentle but sharp. Those posts reflect ongoing intimidation and are relevant to continued distress. The judge nodded. We'll see it in sequence. Conduct, injury, forgery, harassment. My heart didn't race. It simply steadied. Calvin used to say, "When you tell the truth, time stands beside you." I inhaled. Let that guide me forward. The bailiff wheeled a cart with a monitor. The first clip rolled. Doorbell footage. Time stamped. My voice calm as glass broke somewhere off screen. Then the phone clip of my bruise. Short, clinical, not pitiful. Arthur cued a 10-second audio. Valora's voice. "Servants must obey." The words dropped like a cold coin into water. The judge looked up, expression unchanged, but the room itself seemed to tilt. "Did you provoke?" she asked. "No, ma'am," I said. I refused to pour more whiskey and asked her to serve herself. Simple truth, nothing more. Was there shouting? No, I handled it properly, not loudly. Next came the money. Arthur presented the bank letter, the manager's statement of forgery. I pointed to my signature, neat and angled, then to the crooked imitation beside it. "That is not my signature." Valora's lawyer tried to call it authorized household use. Arthur asked, "Show written consent." Silence. The judge marked it, Exhibit D. "Forgery compounds household risk," she said, noting it in her file. I sat still, hearing Calvin's voice in my mind. Facts line up if you give them room. Arthur wasn't finished. "Your Honor," he said, "Exhibit E, professional correspondence impacted by respondent's conduct." Screenshots appeared. Brand emails with lines like "partnership paused pending misconduct review." Names were redacted, but tone was clear. Valora stared down at the table. Arthur added the delivery driver's clip, the man's voice repeating her name. Defense called it character evidence. Arthur replied, "It's pattern evidence. Your Honor shows escalation beyond the household." The judge allowed it with limits. I didn't look at Valora, I just breathed. Arthur read a final email. "We cannot associate with ongoing domestic disputes." Valora's shoulders sagged. Darius covered his face. The ruling came fast and clean. 6-month protective order, no contact. 100 yards minimum. Retrieval by sheriff escort. A social media restriction added for good measure. No mention of me or the property. The trust clause stood as supporting proof of private right. "Order granted," the judge said. I nodded. Not triumphant, just grateful. Arthur handed me the certified copy. Paper against paper. It felt like the sound of safety returning. Darius mouthed, "Thank you." I nodded back, the way old church mothers do when words might break the quiet. In the hallway afterward, Arthur outlined next steps: rekey locks, audit utilities, change passwords. I scheduled the locksmith on my phone right there, confirmation number saved. At home that evening, I filed the court order behind the trust clause, making the silver tray lighter by one fear. I brewed black tea, wrote a new list, utilities, passwords, insurance writer, and set Lainey's frame drawing back on the mantel. Her crayon colors looked stronger in afternoon light, as if truth had polished them too. Later that night, my phone buzzed with a voicemail transcription. "This isn't over." I forwarded it to Arthur without reply. He texted back, "Logged. Ignore and archive." I glanced at the doorbell cam, an idling car across the street, plate half visible. I saved a still image to my evidence folder. Then I whispered, half to myself, "Paper can be quiet, but it travels faster than anger." Thursday afternoon sat heavy with heat. 2 sheriff cruisers angled at my curb, their hazard lights ticking steady like a metronome. The deputies explained the process, one with Valora, one with me. Chain of custody, photographs, no contact. I unlocked only the side garage door and set 3 labeled boxes on a dolly: clothing, laptop, paperwork. Each time a deputy lifted one, I said the time aloud, fixing it in my memory. Valora tried to add another, smaller box, claiming sentimental items. The deputy shook his head. "Not on today's list?" Ma'am? She huffed, muttering, "You're holding my life hostage." I answered quietly, "I keep my word and my peace." Through the open doorway, I saw Darius and Lainey standing together, the girl holding her choir bear. I raised my hand, a signal that all was well, and shut the door so she wouldn't have to hear grown-ups fail their manners. Friday morning began with the hum of hold music. I called utilities, removed Valora's access, wrote each ticket number in my spiral notebook, passwords changed, accounts double-checked, alerts set for any charge above $50. I told myself this wasn't paranoia, it was prevention. I stopped by the church and dropped a small check in the choir fund under Lainey's name, Deaconess. Ruth hugged me without questions. "We're praying, baby," she said. Sometimes that's all older women need to hear. At the store, I bought a frame for Lainey's hymn program. The cashier asked if it was a gift. "A promise," I said, driving home. I practiced my line for gossip. We're safe and letting the paper do its job. By afternoon, Arthur's email arrived. 2 sponsors had officially dropped Valora. The language was cold. Misconduct risk. Values alignment. I didn't celebrate. I filed them under consequences, Darius called later, voice tight. HR had offered him a transfer to Huntsville, same pay plus a small raise. "Would that feel like abandoning you?" he asked. "No," I said. "It means you're being a roof for your child." "That's honoring me." He told me Valora was staying with a cousin, talking online about redemption arcs. "Redemption," I replied, "starts with repair." Saturday morning, we met at a cafe parking lot. Public, bright, neutral. Arthur had approved a 10-minute window. I arrived early, sat beneath the shade with sweet tea. Valora approached in sunglasses, voice small. "I'm sorry you got hurt." I noted the phrasing. "Sorry you got hurt. Not I hurt you." She talked about followers dropping, sponsors gone, doors closing. "You could release a statement, help me soften it," she said. I kept my voice even. "I don't speak for you. I speak for my safety." She asked about a second chance video. I said, "Second chances start offline, with restitution and an apology to the child." I laid out clear terms, a private apology to Darius and Lainey, repayment plan for the fraudulent charges, a written promise to stop referencing me online, and a small anonymous donation to the choir fund. "Do that," I said, "and I'll sign one sentence. We are proceeding peacefully through counsel." "Nothing more," Darius added. "No school or church visits without permission for 6 months." Valora hesitated. "What if I live stream the apology?" I answered. "Then it isn't an apology. It's content." Her eyes lowered. I gave her until the end of the month. The unspoken clause was clear, or the paper will speak again. That night, I called Sister Eloise. She laughed softly when I told her the day's events. "Baby, revenge is messy. Consequence is tidy. Keep it tidy." We prayed short, practical words. Afterward, I set out Lainey's school clothes, polished her choir shoes, wrote in my gratitude journal, "House is quiet, child is singing, paper is steady." When I checked the doorbell feed, all I saw was a stray cat crossing the porch. First calm moment in weeks. Sunday morning. Sunlight streamed through stained glass at choir practice. Lainey hummed her part. Then Valora appeared at the doorway, bouquet in hand, a friend beside her, holding up a phone. The usher warned her. "No filming during children's choir." She ignored him, stepping forward. "I want to say I'm sorry to this family." The red recording light blinked. I stood, placed myself between the camera and the child. This is not the place, and that is not an apology. The room held its breath. 2 choir mothers moved beside me, like bookends of quiet strength. Darius motioned toward the exit. Valora froze, then handed the flowers to the usher. "Please," I said gently, "set them in the narthex, and leave it at that." She left without another word. That afternoon, Arthur texted. Valora's attempt counted as a violation. The judge's clerk issued a written warning. Next time, contempt. Darius accepted the Huntsville transfer. Company housing for 2 months. That night, we planned his move. School forms, boxes, new locks for the house. I walked through each room, marking small repairs that felt like reclaiming space. I drafted a 1-line statement for Arthur. We are safe and cooperating with court orders. We had a simple supper: chicken, beans, cornbread. Darius thanked me, eyes tired. "Be the roof for your girl," I said. My phone buzzed, an email from Valora's lawyer, subject line proposed statement. I didn't open it. I forwarded it to Arthur, set my phone face down, and poured sweet tea. Evening air brushed the porch rails. "If she wants a stage," I whispered, "she won't find it here, only a door that closes soft and locks sure." I woke before sunrise, the air still cool enough to feel clean. The coffee pot clicked on, steady and familiar. I spread a sheet of paper across the kitchen table and wrote 4 words at the top: file, fund, fix, farewell. That was my roadmap. At 8, I called Arthur to confirm the filings, the affidavit supplement, the restitution letter, and my appointment to amend the trust. "We'll handle it in order," he said, "and you'll sleep easier." I texted Darius next. Pack essentials first: documents, meds, school files. Clothes can follow. Then I phoned the church office to reserve the small room for Thursday's PSA taping on elder safety. No gossip, just resources. I opened my checkbook and earmarked a small fund for Lainey's new start. Bus fare, after-school care, maybe counseling if she needed it. My mantra as I dressed: we don't chase drama. We keep our appointment with the clerk. At the county recorder's office, the fluorescent hum reminded me of the courtroom. Arthur stood beside me as the clerk scrolled through filings. "That one," she said, tapping the screen. A quitclaim deed, post-dated and poorly notarized. My name forged again. That same crooked G. Arthur's jaw set tight. We filed a sworn statement on the spot. The clerk stamped it, each thud like a small gavel of truth. She added a fraud alert to my parcel. Any future filing would trigger a call to both me and counsel. I thanked her for explaining it plain. When we stepped outside, sunlight hit the courthouse steps, and I said quietly, "The house stands because the paper stands." Arthur nodded. No need for more. That afternoon, I met with the notary to amend the trust. Lainey's education fund became active that day. Darius named trustee. Anyone under a protective order against me was now disinherited for the order's duration, firm but fair. I added a choir scholarship in Calvin's name, 1 child a year, faith-based and clean. We notarized, scanned, and filed copies in my fire-safe box. I texted Darius, "This isn't a weapon, it's a roof." Then I placed the silver tray back on the buffet, lighter than it had been in months. Arthur emailed the restitution schedule that evening. 30 days. Fixed payments. No live stream apologies allowed. Any breach meant contempt. I added a note to allow smaller first payments if Valora could prove employment. Justice, not cruelty. "We'll keep the paper kind, but firm," Arthur wrote. I filed his message under terms enforced. By Wednesday, Darius's boxes lined the hall. That night, we cooked a farewell dinner, baked ziti, salad, peach cobbler. I slipped a zippered pouch into his hand, birth certificates, the trust copy, a little cash. "Son," I said on the porch, "be the roof, Not the weather." He smiled, eyes bright. "Yes, ma'am." Lainey hugged me tight, her backpack already zipped, hymn program tucked inside like a prayer. As their car turned toward Huntsville, I whispered, "Go on." Build quiet. Thursday, the church office smelled of lemon polish and hymnals. Deaconess. Ruth balanced her phone on a tripod while I spoke 2 minutes straight. How to document abuse, who to call, how to keep paper trails clean. No names, no bitterness, just information. "Paper over noise," I said, and Ruth clapped once. Pastor closed with a short prayer, and Ophelia notarized a witness statement for a neighbor. Later that day, an email arrived from a sponsor offering to quietly fund the new scholarship. I CC'd Arthur and replied, "Make it out to the church." Walking home, I felt the kind of lightness that comes from being done explaining. Saturday morning, the doorbell camera blinked. Valora stood at the curb holding an envelope. She didn't cross the property line. "I'll make the payments," she said to the camera. The deputy's warning must have sunk in. When I checked the mailbox later, the first restitution receipt sat inside, official letterhead and all. I logged it, sent Arthur a photo. That night, her social page went dark except for one black square with 5 words, "I'm working it out offline." I exhaled. "Good," I murmured. "Let it stay there." I called the locksmith to install a final deadbolt, top-grade steel. When the new key clicked, I felt peace land in my bones like a hymn resolving. Sunday evening, I set the silver tray one last time. Trust amendment, scholarship letter, restitution stub, Lainey's drawing, Calvin's photo, church bulletin. I fed the forged papers into the shredder and watched them turn to dust. The phone buzzed, a sponsor's thank you. I replied simply, "Make the check to the choir." Then I switched off the light, the house quiet as prayer. A soft ping sounded at the doorbell. Miss Bernice, my elderly neighbor, stood holding a folder labeled, "Need help with my papers." I opened the door, smiled, and said, "Come on in. Bernice, let's get your ducks in a row." That night, as the rain began tapping softly against the windows, I opened Miss Bernice's folder. Inside wasn't her paperwork. It was a faded deed with my late husband's signature beside a name I'd never seen before. My breath caught. Outside, a car idled under the streetlight and didn't drive away.